You might have watched Oppenheimer recently, and you might be wondering if what Robert Oppenheimer did was right or wrong. For those who are unfamiliar, Oppenheimer was the forebearer of the Manhattan Project, which was responsible for the first ever nuclear attacks in the history of the world, conducted in 1945 by the US on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan to end World War II. Nuclear weapons have since been regarded as one of the deadliest discoveries or inventions of all time. And it is said that it is the fear of nuclear weapons that has prevented World War III for almost 80 years now. But Oppenheimer might be happy in his grave to know that nuclear weapons do not top the list of the deadliest discoveries of all time. Because there is one thing that is even more deadlier. In fact, this thing is so deadly that it is estimated to kill more people each year than alcohol, accidents, suicide, AIDS, and illegal drugs combined. Tobacco. Tobacco is one of the most popular narcotic products in the world, and smoking is among the leading causes of death across countries and continents. In India, 13.5 lakh people die every single year from tobacco-related illnesses. That is 156 people dying every single day. So the ill effects of tobacco are universally known and accepted, and I do not need to convince you why tobacco is bad. So the question actually here is, why doesn't the government ban tobacco? Since cigarettes are so bad, why not simply remove them from society? Well, firstly, tobacco has a solid economic impact. The tobacco industry contributes about 11.8 lakh crore rupees to the Indian economy, and it employs over 4.5 crore people, most of which are farmers, making India the second largest consumer as well as producer of tobacco in the entire world. Secondly, tobacco is highly prevalent in India. So according to the Global Adult Tobacco Survey in India done in 2017, about 26.7 crore Indians are users of tobacco, which means that about 29% of all Indian adults use tobacco in one form or the other. So if you ban it, it will just continue to be used, instead promoting illegal trading and smuggling. And thirdly, it is because of the cigarette industry itself. So most of us are familiar with household brands like Classmate, Ashirwad and Sunfeast. But many do not know that these brands are actually owned by ITC. ITC is one of the largest conglomerates in India, ranking at number 7 by market cap as of August 2023 when I was making this video. But another thing that many do not know is that the full form of ITC is Indian Tobacco Company. It is the largest manufacturer of cigarettes in India, having a 72% market share and owning brands like Gold Flake, Classic, Wills and Insignia. And what I find extremely interesting is that the Indian government indirectly owns a roughly 28% stake in ITC through 5 insurance companies and the so-called Specified Undertaking of the Unit Trust of India, or SUUTI. So not only ITC, but the government of India itself will lose money if tobacco is banned in India. And lastly, tobacco is a gigantic contributor to India's overall tax collection. In financial year 2022, the Indian government collected over 19,300 crore rupees as taxes from tobacco products alone. And the Honorable Finance Minister herself said that the tobacco products contribute roughly 2.4% of the overall tax collection in India. So it does not make financial sense to go ahead and ban tobacco products altogether, triggering a loss of almost 19,000 crores to the government in a single year and snatching the livelihoods of 4.5 crore people overnight, most of which are poor farmers. So to control the consumption of tobacco, the government claims to adopt a different route, increasing the taxes. Cigarettes are one of the highest tax products in our country along with alcohol and cars. So the government argues that by raising the taxes on cigarette and tobacco products, it is increasing their final price, essentially discouraging their use. However, that is not really the case. There is something quite unique about the tobacco problem of India that sets it apart from most of the world. So while in countries like the US, cigarettes make up almost 100% of tobacco consumption. But in India, cigarettes contribute just 14 to 15% of the overall consumption of tobacco. Tobacco products in our country can be divided into 2 categories: cigarettes consumed by rich people and BDs and smokeless tobacco products consumed by poor people like gutka, pan with tobacco and khenni. So while cigarettes contribute only 15% to overall tobacco consumption, BDs contribute 45% and the rest 40% is contributed by smokeless and chewable tobacco products. However, when it comes to tax contributions, cigarettes contribute nearly 85% of the overall tax collection in our country. Because BDs, canny, and all these other chewable products are taxed at a much lower price than cigarettes. So to explain this further, the percentage of tax in the final price is 53% for cigarettes, 22% for BDs, and 60% for smokeless tobacco products. This is much below the recommendation of WHO, which recommends tobacco products should be taxed at least a flat 75% of the selling price. So here you might be wondering, why is the government not increasing the taxes? Well, this is where the dark side of governance comes in: political obligations. See, you have to recall that 29% of the Indian population uses tobacco. And clearly, a majority of these people are low-income groups that use BDs and smokeless tobacco products. Increasing taxes on these will result in an increase in prices, which could have a negative effect on the vote bank of the ruling government. So as a token of action to pacify anti-tobacco movements and saying that, okay, we are doing something about it, the government periodically increases the taxes on cigarettes, and that too very slightly, while leaving the taxes on BDs and other tobacco products as it is. The budget this year, for example, was completely silent on any tax revisions on BDs or smokeless tobacco. And in fact, until 2008, Gutka did not used to be taxed at all. See, rich people are not really discouraged by the price increase in cigarettes. So when the price of a product rises, the demand for its quantity almost always falls. But it falls more for some products than for others. So for example, if tomorrow the price of rice as well as Coca-Cola is doubled, the demand for Coca-Cola will obviously fall a lot more than the demand for rice. Rice is an essential commodity, so increasing its price might not necessarily have an effect on the demand. And cigarettes are one of the products that do not suffer a lot due to an increase in pricing. See, if I am earning 1 lakh rupees a month, it hardly matters to me whether the cigarette that I am purchasing is worth 18 rupees or 25 rupees. So an increase in taxes is not necessarily going to deter me from buying cigarettes. Alternatively, research shows that if I am poor and I earn 10,000 rupees a month, if the price of BDs increase, I may be less likely to purchase BDs. But another thing that may happen is that I will continue to buy BDs and instead compromise on other household expenses. For poor families, this can mean that people start spending less on food, education, and other essentials, further pushing them into poverty. So not only is increasing the taxes not the perfect solution, the government is also hesitant to increase them anyway due to political obligations. The result, unfortunately, is that millions of people are dying every year in our country. And a 2011 paper estimated that nearly 15 million people in India are pushed into poverty every year due to tobacco use. Another interesting thing here is that while the government contends that tinkering with the tobacco industry will impact the revenue generated through taxes, for every 100 rupees received as excise taxes from tobacco products, the Indian economy loses rupees 816 from diseases and deaths. And that is because a majority of the healthcare cost of all these people who are getting sick is actually borne by government hospitals. It is paid by the money of taxpayers like you and I. Moreover, tobacco farming itself is actually quite harmful to the environment, as per a report by the WHO. And there are alternatives as well. In fact, WHO itself has success stories from Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka, where tobacco growing farmers have successfully shifted over to economically viable alternative crops. So what is the way forward? Well, as suggested by WHO, one solution is definitely to increase the taxes on tobacco products. Even if it ends up disrupting the lives of those dependent on tobacco for their livelihoods, the increased earnings through taxes can be used to rehabilitate these poor households and farmers. And it will also discourage the use of tobacco products, at least to some extent, if not stop it completely. The second is to use awareness campaigns to make people aware of the dangers of tobacco, and more importantly, help those people who are trying to quit using it. The GATS survey in 2017 showed that more than 50% of people who use tobacco are actually trying to quit, but they are unable to do so because of their addiction. Sweden is a perfect example of this policy. It has seen a fall in national smoking rates from 15% to mere 5.6% in the last 15 years, and it is expected to become smoke-free entirely by 2023 end. And finally, it is to protect the youth of our country from falling into this trap of tobacco usage to begin with. Studies show that the age when a person usually uses tobacco for the first time varies between 12 years to 18 years in India. Most teenagers use it just to look cool or to fit in with their social group because their friends are doing it. The use of vapes and e-cigarettes is a new headache altogether. So while many claim that these are less harmful than smoking real cigarettes, there isn't enough data to back this claim. There are over 400 brands of vapes and e-cigarettes, none of which are manufactured in India, and most of which are imported from China. And we do not know what is being put into these vapes or e-cigarettes. Thankfully, the government has already taken note of this fact and banned the import and sale of e-cigarettes in India, at least for now. And there are multiple campaigns by a number of organizations that are helping people quit tobacco every single day. And this was why tobacco will never really be banned in India. I hope you liked this video. I have added an excellent read on the history of smoking in India in the description below. Do check it out, as I feel you will find it interesting. And while you are there, follow me on LinkedIn as well. If you made it so far, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below to help me increase awareness on this topic. And let me know in the comments which story you want me to cover next. Until then, goodbye.